I'm up here right now at the future home of the Double K Farm. This is 6 acres of property in beautiful Arcadia, Florida, and this is the site of our future forever home. We purchased this property so that we could live life more self-sustainably. The only thing is we have a lot of work to do, and while we're doing work here on the farm, we're gonna need some power in our truck. So in today's video, I'm gonna show you how to add a 2,000 watt inverter to your truck without affecting the truck batteries. Hey, my name is Joe and I'm one half of two crazy campers. And after losing a combined weight of more than 200 pounds, we discovered we had so much more energy for activities. Come along with us as we explore the great outdoors and join us on a brand new adventure. So like I said, I'm up here at our beautiful property here in Arcadia, Florida, and we are so excited. We purchased this property to make our forever home so that we can live life more self-sustainably, raise things like sheep, be able to live off of the land, and also have a place where friends can come visit us with their RVs. Now, the problem is this property needs a lot of work. It does have a home on it, but the home has to be gutted. It also needs some buildings built, some sheds built, places to be able to, for people to bring their RVs. And it's a big piece of property. It's 6 acres. And I don't have a lot of long extension cords to run power tools and things like that. So today, we're going to install an inverter in my truck. So today's video is sponsored by Bougie RV, and we'll talk more about them a little later. So when I purchased my truck last year, one of the options that you could get on the Ford Super Duties was a 2 kilowatt inverter. 2 problems with that. Number one, it was a very expensive option. Actually, 3 problems, because the truck that I decided to purchase didn't have it on there. But the thing that really concerned me about it was the fact that it ran off of the truck batteries and you had to have the truck running to use it. Well, I don't want to have my truck running and waste all of that diesel fuel just to run the inverter. So today, we're going to install a 2,000 watt inverter in our truck, and we're going to set it up so that it doesn't rely on the truck batteries. What that means is we can operate it without the truck running. Now, this installation is fairly simple, and it's very similar to something that you would put into your RV. But I do want to give a disclaimer. I am not an electrician. I am not an automotive tech. I'm simply showing you what I'm doing in my truck and giving you some information on how you could do it. But please, if you are afraid of electricity, if you don't know what you're doing, please make sure you consult a professional. Now let's get into the installation. Okay, so we are gonna mount the inverter and the battery here underneath the back seat. Now my truck has this storage bay. It was an accessory that was installed and I contemplated taking it out, but I really do like it for a few reasons. Number one, I like the fact that it separates your floor from the storage area. I don't want things falling from here to underneath the floor. Also, over there, it's got like a little door that can be open and closed. So I have it closed right now. That allows me to maintain some storage area under that seat. And then lastly, I like the fact that it separates this little area right here from here, because I don't want to have this stuff falling down on my inverter. So we're going to try to install it with this tray. If it doesn't work, then we'll take out the whole tray. So the next thing we're going to do is actually cut a board that we can mount in here so that I can screw down my connectors and my fuses and stuff. So we got a piece of 3/4 inch plywood, and I've measured off 9 inches. That'll fit inside of the bay. So we're going to go ahead and cut this, and then we're just going to lay it on the floor in there. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and see if this will fit in here. That is perfect. That'll give me more than enough room to mount everything that I wanna lay in here. As I said in the beginning of the video, this is a project that I've been planning to do for a while. I mean, pretty much since we purchased the truck. What was holding me back from the installation was just our schedule. We had so many things going on between the filming of RV Unplugged and then having to drive up to Elkhart to pick up our new Alliance. I never got around to actually completing the installation. But I did purchase the battery about 8 months ago. And the battery we chose to use is the Life Power 4 from EG4. I purchased this battery from Signature Solar. I will leave a link for it down below. And this is the same company that we got our batteries for the installation in our 2019 Grand Design Imagine. And those batteries were great. So I felt confident in going with this company. Now, a few things about this battery. First of all, this is a 12.8 volt, 100 amp hour battery. And a lot of the batteries that we were looking for in this size were coming in at 50 amp hours. So I was happy to find a battery that is a Group 24 size battery that is actually going to give me 100 amp hours. If you compare that to our old Battleborn, you can see the difference in size. This is a much heavier battery. I don't remember what the weight is off the top of my head, but it is significantly heavier than this battery that comes in at just 22 pounds. And you can see that the life power is much smaller in size. Now, as far as size, we are looking at a depth of 6.5 inches deep. We're looking at a height of about 8.5 inches, and then we have another 1/2 inch for the post, so 9 inches. And then we're at 10.25 inches wide. So it's the perfect battery to fit underneath the back seat of my truck. A few other things about this battery is it does have Bluetooth monitoring in it. It is rated for 7,000 cycles, which is going to give you a 10 to 20 year lifespan. It is waterproof. It has a built-in BMS and comes with a 5-year warranty. Now, at the time that we are actually filming this video, it is currently selling on Signature Solar's website for $239. The other thing that I think is great about this battery is I think it's perfect for the new RVer or the weekend warrior who doesn't really need to have a giant battery bank like what we have in our Alliance Delta, that maybe somebody who just wants enough battery to get through the night running their lights in a Walmart parking lot or something like that, or they don't want to come back to a dead battery. I spent a lot of time in Facebook groups, and one of the things that I see come up over and over again is new RVers purchase their RV and they've got the battery they got from their dealer and it goes dead because of their refrigerator. So most of the new RVs are coming with 12 volt refrigerators, and they do use a significant amount of power. We've actually tested ours, and when the compressor is running, it does draw about 100 watts. So a lot of times the lead acid batteries that you get from your dealer, they're not going to get you through the night on your 12 volt fridge. So what I always recommend to people is if you are going to go purchase a new RV, my suggestion is tell your dealer you don't want them to supply a battery, because they're going to overcharge you anyway, and they're generally going to charge you or provide you with a just standard lead acid battery. Go online, go to Signature Solar, purchase this battery. It's, like I said, it's going to cost you $239 at the time we're recording this video, and bring the battery with you and install it. In the end, you're probably going to pay less money for this battery than you will for that lead acid battery. Because a couple things about the lead acid batteries. Lead acid batteries, first of all, they can explode. That's not the case with a lithium iron phosphate battery. These are much safer batteries. They are much lighter, and they're going to last you longer, because a lead acid battery is generally going to last you 2 to 3 years. This battery has a lifespan of 10 to 20 years. So over the course of time, this is going to be the better option to go with anyway. The other problem with lead acid batteries is lead acid batteries, you can only discharge them to 50%. If you go lower than that, which happens all the time when people put their RV in storage, you could permanently damage your battery. With a lithium iron phosphate battery, you can actually discharge it all the way to 0, although I generally recommend not going lower than 20%. But you can discharge it all the way to 0 and you won't harm the battery. So this to me is the perfect battery for that scenario, someone who just needs a battery. As a matter of fact, when we went and picked up our Alliance Delta, we brought this battery with us. And what I did was when I picked it up, they didn't supply me with a battery. I put this battery onto the trailer, used it until I was able to install all of my Big Beard batteries. Okay, so let's talk about supplying power from our truck. So our truck actually has 2 batteries and 2 alternators. We have a battery on this side. We have a battery on this side. We're looking for the shortest run. This truck also has 2 alternators. So what we're going to do is we're going to connect our positive to this terminal right here. We're going to connect our negative to this terminal right here. Now you may notice a problem. There is no lug to connect this wire to. So what we're going to do, need to run to the store. We are going to basically create a lug. So we're going to drill a hole into this right here and put a post up. Now you could use this. However, this is painted, and so you're not going to get the best connection. So the best thing to do is to drill a hole through here, put a small bolt, then we can take our wire, we can put a connector on the end, we can run this way. And then on the negative, we actually have a place. For some reason it's missing a nut, but we can go get one of those nuts. It's probably a 10 millimeter nut. Okay, from there, the wire runs down, and I drilled a hole through the firewall, and it runs down. It's going to all get zip tied up this way. It goes through the firewall into the cabin. It then comes in there through the firewall. You can see I put a rubber grommet so that we don't have anything damaging the wires or anything like that. It then runs down underneath here. I have it fed in here, and it's running down the side here. I fished it through from here into the back. It comes down from there. You have it seeing here going down through the side. I then have it fished up underneath the carpet into here. It then comes out that hole, follows up along the back of the box, and then I have it fed right into here. Now I know what you're thinking. In the beginning of the video, I said that we were not going to be using the truck batteries to run the inverter. Yet I just showed you how I'm running cables from the truck into the back where I'm going to be setting up the inverter. But we're not using those truck batteries to run the inverter. What we're going to be doing is installing a Victoron 12 volt to 12 volt DC charger. What that's going to do is use the alternator for our truck to charge the battery that I'm putting in the back. The inverter will be running off of that signature solar battery, not off of the truck batteries. The cable that we're running from the batteries is just to be able to have the alternator from the truck keep that entire battery system charged. Now you could go a step further and actually install a small solar charge controller and then use a briefcase solar panel system to be able to also charge this battery if you're out boondocking in your truck or like a van or something like that. But the batteries itself in our truck are not going to be keeping this inverter running. The inverter is relying on the battery that we have back there, and we're just using the truck alternator to keep that battery charged. Now for the inverter, I was looking for something similar in power to what you would get if you were to purchase the Ford inverter package, which is 2 kilowatts. What I'm not sure of is whether or not that inverter that Ford supplies you with is a modified sine or a pure sine. And I really wanted a pure sine inverter so that we can plug in computers and things like that and not have to worry about it. So I was looking for a 2000 watt pure sine inverter, but unfortunately a lot of the ones that I was finding that had any kind of decent reviews or that were a good brand were too large. They simply wouldn't fit under the back seat in that box, and I was going to have to move things around. And recently, Bougie RV reached out to us and asked us if we'd take a look at this inverter, and this was perfect. So this is a 2000 watt pure sine inverter from Bougie RV. They did supply it to us for free for the purpose of this video. However, I would have purchased it anyway. Every product we've ever tried from them we really liked. In fact, we recently did a review of their cooler, and that thing is amazing. If you haven't seen that video, go take a look at it. I will leave a link for it up here. So this actually will fit perfectly underneath our back seat, and also it would be perfect for something like the Alliance Deltas, where they come pre-wired from the factory for an inverter, but you want to have something that's a little bit smaller so that you can fit it into the bay in your pass-through. And this one is absolutely perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and put it down here and we'll get some measurements. So depth-wise, it's 6 3/4 inches. Height-wise, it is 3 3/4 inches. And then length-wise, this one's going to be a little bit more challenging. It is 13 inches, but then you do have your things on the end, so that's another inch on this side, and then your battery post is 1.5 inches. So that's 2.5 inches, 13, so 15.5 inches in total length. It is a 12-volt inverter that has an output efficiency of greater than 90%, and under full load, it has an output efficiency of greater than 86%, which means you won't lose as much power as you're converting from your 12-volt over to your AC side. As far as weight, it comes in at 8.6 pounds. So between the weight and then also the length and the height that we discussed earlier, it is significantly smaller than a lot of the 2000 watt pure sine inverters that I looked at. Now, as far as your connections, it does have on the one side your battery connections, your positive and your negative. And I do like the fact that it's got some covers on there so we don't accidentally touch stuff. On this one side, you can see it does have 2 fans. On the other side, we have 2 of our AC outlets. We have a power switch, and then we also have a USB port. And then it does have built-in Bluetooth, but it also comes with a communication hub that you can plug in right there. In addition, they have all kinds of safety features and protection limits that are built into this. So it's going to be perfect for this installation. So I do want to say thank you very much to Bougie RV for sending us this for this video. We really do appreciate it. We appreciate them for supporting us, and we appreciate you guys for supporting the companies that support Two Crazy Campers. I think this is going to be absolutely perfect for this installation, but it's also going to be perfect for the RVer who's looking for a smaller inverter in their RV where they just want to run their outlets, coffee pot, hair dryer, things like that, maybe their televisions, but don't necessarily want to run their AC. So let's go ahead and see how this is going to fit under the seat and how everything will lay out. Okay, so most of the installation is done, but we had to change the layout a little bit. Let me show you what we did. So first of all, please ignore the dirty back seat. Sorry about that, but I had to take everything out from the storage container. Originally, we were going to take this board and it was going to run the entire length here. But what ended up happening was with the board, which is 3/4 inch plywood, when I put the battery on top of it, it was making contact with the seat when I would fold my seat down. So what we ended up doing is cut the board, and this battery is now laying flush on the bottom of the plastic storage container. We then trim the board to come up to the battery, and now the battery won't move. It's kind of holding the battery in place. And then we also had to move the inverter, because originally I was going to lay the inverter flat down on the ground. But the problem is I didn't have enough room to put my disconnect, my fuse, and my smart shunt. So instead what we did was we pushed it up flush against the wall here. I have it screwed in over here, if you can see it. And then I'll run another screw down on the bottom. And then up here on the front, again, we have a screw going in, and then we'll run another one right here as well. The board is also cut around the inverter for the same reason. If we put the inverter on top of the plywood, it was going to make contact with the bottom of the seat. Now, the only thing is that when we close our seat now, because there was a plastic door here, I had to take that off so that I can have access to all of my outlets and the power switch and everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to design a little piece with my 3D printer and put it in here, and then I'm going to put the actual Bougie RV control panel right on there as well, and then I'll also put a little bit of ventilation in there. Okay, did a little bit of work with the 3D printer. This is the piece that I came up with. So now when we close our seat, we've got a little bit better look because we have a place to put our control panel. So this control panel is going to go right in here. If I can get it in with one hand. So that's what the control panel is going to look like. And then I'll run a couple of screws right through there. And then there is an Ethernet cable that goes from the back of this over to here. And this will allow me to see everything that's going on with the inverter. Then when we close our seat, that's the look that we have. So I really like the way that came out. While I was working with the 3D printer, we also came up with something for this fuse, because the cover that came with this fuse holder had the wires coming in the side, but I didn't want to take up that much room. I wanted to have a short run. So I just created a little cover here. It's got a couple of cutouts on the other side for the wires, and it kind of goes down like this. And then it's going to snap into place like that. Now let's go over the entire system and all the wires and everything that I used. Okay, let's start under the hood with our positive connection. So we have our positive connection here. I drilled a hole through here, put a bolt, made our positive connection. Now this is 6-gauge copper wire. This wire then runs down over here into a 60 amp circuit breaker. It's a resettable circuit breaker, so it's got a little button so that you can pop it and then you can also reset it, and then the wire runs down through the firewall like we showed you. For the negative, we connected to this bolt right here and added a 10mm nut. The negative then follows along, goes down, and then in through the sidewall like we showed you earlier. Those wires run down along the side of the truck and then into the storage bay right here like I showed you, and then into our Victoron DC to DC charger. So the red is going to input positive, the black is going to input negative. Now on the output side, we have a red wire, again 6-gauge wire, running from the positive output into a 60 amp resettable fuse. And then from there, it goes along here into our battery. And then we have a new cable going from the battery into our battery disconnect. And here we're using 4-gauge wire. So on the output from the battery, we're using 4-gauge wire. So we have 4-gauge wire going to our battery disconnect. Then we're going into our fuse right here. From there, we go into our inverter. Now on the negative side, we're going from the negative output on the DC to DC charger over to the battery negative. And then we have a 4-gauge negative battery running from there. It follows along here into our Victron smart shunt. And then the other side of the smart shunt goes directly into our inverter. Now the smart shunt does require a 12-volt wire, which I am then just connecting right into my fuse right here. I am sorry about the glistening glow coming off of my forehead, but it is August in South Florida. Let's talk a little bit about the Victoron Charger. When you get your charger, it's going to come with one of these jumpers. This needs to be installed. If you don't install it, the charger won't charge your battery that you have under your back seat or in whatever application that you're using it in. The problem is if you just hook up the system the way I have it hooked up and then you put this in, you're going to be draining from your truck battery at all times. So we have the alternator charges our battery. The battery is then running to this battery to charge this battery. Now, inside of the Victoron app, you can turn on something called engine shutdown detection. What that is it's going to basically detect when you turn off your engine, and then if you turn off your engine, then it's going to have less voltage coming in, and then it will stop trying to charge your battery back here. So if you're going to use this jumper, you definitely want to turn on engine detection. So that can all be found inside of the app. There's actually instructions on how to set it up depending on the type of truck or whatever you're using it for. Now, the other option is to basically set up a remote, which is what I'm going to do. So with the remote, we're going to actually remove the jumper wire, and we're going to run a wire from something that is enabled by the ignition into the H on the back of this plug. And then we're going to put that into the actual charger. If we do that, the Victoron Charger will not charge this back battery unless my engine is running. I trust that a lot more than the app. I'm not saying that the app doesn't work and that having the engine shutdown is not going to work. I just trust actually physically disconnecting it more than relying on a piece of software to do it for me. I don't want to come back to a dead battery. So let me show you what we're going to do. So my truck has these auxiliary switches. So we're actually going to wire it to one of these switches. So let me go ahead and turn on the truck because it's hot, and then I can also show you what I'm talking about. So the auxiliary 6 switch is pretty much always on. That is hooked up to my air pump that I have mounted underneath the truck, but I like having a switch that I can turn it off in case I have an air leak or something like that. Auxiliary 1 is my air horn. So if I want to blow my air horn, I just do that. Auxiliary 3 is my tire minder. So if I'm not using the tire minder, I keep this off. That just allows me to not drain my battery by having it hooked up to that. And I'm not using 4 and 5. So I'm going to hook it up to auxiliary 2. Doing it this way actually gives me some redundancy because the auxiliary 2 switch is hooked up to the ignition on the truck. So if I turn off my truck, even if I leave that switch on, then the charger is going to stop working. But the reason I want to have it hooked up to a physical switch, since I already have them, is if I'm in a situation and maybe I don't want to run that charger, maybe I had a low battery and I want that alternator to just focus on my batteries right now, I can turn off that charger completely. It just gives me an extra backup without having to go out and turn off the circuit breakers. Now, I'm not going to show you how to hook up those auxiliary switches because every truck is different, and if you don't have the auxiliary switches, it's kind of pointless. If you do have them, just look in your owner's manual. It tells you where you can connect to those wires. Now, if you don't have the auxiliary switches, just tap into something that is controlled by your ignition. A good thing to look for would be the radio. Just get a simple fuse jumper. I'll leave a link for one down below. You're going to find the fuse for your radio, pull it out, connect it into that fuse jumper, and then connect your wire to that. So I have the wire running down the side of the truck, and then it comes up and it tucks up in here and then runs along the back. It then comes into the storage compartment right here, and I have it connected into the jumper right here. Now you're going to notice on the jumper, you actually have two sides. You only need to connect into one side. It's going to go into the H side. So on your charger right over here, there is a place that marks which side is L and which side is H. You're going to put it into the H side. You only have to connect one side. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove the jumper, and then we're going to put this in its place. Now we can go test the system. So we're going to start with it off and go ahead and check the system. So we're going to open up our Victoron app. And then you can see here I have my smart solar. That's for the RV parked on the side. Then we have the truck inverter and we have the smart shunt. So we're going to choose truck inverter. And you're going to see right here, it does say that my charge is disabled due to the remote input being inactive. Now it does say that it is getting a input voltage of 13.6. Now we'll go ahead and we'll turn it on. Usually it takes a couple seconds. And now you see it is bulk charging. So it says the battery is charging with a maximum current until the absorption voltage is reached. At the end of the bulk charge, battery is 80% charged and ready to use. So you can see that we have an input voltage of 13.6. It is outputting 14.2. And then we can go ahead and hit the settings. And then I'm going to show you where everything was on here. So first of all, you have function. You want to make sure it's on charger and not power supply. So we have it on charger. Then we have our battery settings. I have it at factory default for a lithium iron phosphate battery. Charger is enabled. And then I've got the absorption voltage set at 14.2, the float voltage at 13.5. And then my bulk time limit is 10 hours. You're never going to have to worry about that because we're not going to run the truck that long. And then the absorption stuff. Now you can actually change this by going up to battery preset. You have the factory default, and then you can go user defined, select preset, and edit presets. We're just leaving it on factory default for a lithium iron phosphate battery. Now we'll go over to our engine shutdown. That's what I was talking about before. And I have it off because I have it hooked up to the switch, but you could turn it on. And then when you turn it on, it's going to ask you what kind of alternator do you have? Do you have a smart alternator or a regular alternator? And then it's got your starting voltage, your delayed start voltage, your shutdown voltage, and everything. If you look in here in the manual right here, it will tell you how to set all that up. But because we have it hooked up to a switch, we're not going to worry about that. So we're just going to keep that off. While we're here, let's go ahead and check our smart shunt. So we have our smart shunt is here. And it says our battery is at 100% with a voltage of 14.27. And we're going to go ahead and plug something in and then test it and see how does it react. Okay, so right now we have the inverter on. We're going to go ahead and turn it off. You can see it's not drawing any voltage. Now we're going to go ahead and turn it on to see how much voltage it actually draws. And we can see down here on the screen, it tells you everything that's going on. So 14.6 volts, and it's got an output of 120 volts. Now we're going to go ahead and plug in this little blower, and we're going to turn it on and see what happens. Now, before we wrap up this video, let's talk a little bit more about the Bougie RV inverter. So far, I'm extremely impressed with it. It has performed flawlessly, and I've been able to operate some pretty big items. I've run my shop vac on it. I've been able to charge all of my Milwaukee drill batteries. I even was able to use a heat gun on it, and we had no issues. It was able to power everything. I'm really, really impressed with it, and I love the fact that it's a small footprint and fits under the backseat of my truck. Now, one thing I did want to talk about is the app. So there is an app for the Bougie RV inverter, and I find it somewhat useful. Now, other people may find it more useful than me, but I do want to give you my honest opinion. For me, it's just as easy to actually go turn the switch on to turn the inverter on and off, because you can use the app to do that. Where I find the app more beneficial is to see what's going on with the inverter. So if I'm charging, for example, Milwaukee batteries and I'm at a different part of the property and away from my truck, I can see what's going on with the inverter. Is it functioning? How much power is it drawing? How much power has it drawn? Now, some of those features are actually available in the Victoron Smart Shunt app, but not everybody is going to install a Victoron Smart Shunt in this setup. I'm doing it because I like seeing the state of charge on my batteries, plus I love all Victoron products. But overall, the app for me is somewhat useful, but like I said, I think some people will really find it useful. Now, I do want to say thank you very much to Bougie RV for sponsoring today's video, and I want to say thank you to you guys for supporting the sponsors who support Two Crazy Campers. So that is going to be the end of today's video, but before I do end the video, I do have to give a big shout out to Alliance, because while we're working on this house, which is that one right there, we are currently living in our Alliance Delta 294RK because the house is completely unlivable. And I'll tell you what, the Alliance Delta 294RK has been perfect for us to live in. We've been able to operate pretty much everything off of our Big Beard batteries, and we just have the solar on the roof, and we trickle charge during the day at 10 amps coming off of the house. So big shout out to Alliance and Big Beard batteries. Now let us know down in the comments section if this is something that you would be interested in doing to your truck. Now, while you're down there in the comment section, please do us a favor, hit the like button on this video. That does two things. Number one, it really does help build the channel, which we greatly appreciate. But more importantly, it lets us know what kind of videos you guys are looking to see. Also, while you're down there, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the little bell button. This way you are notified every time we upload a new video. And until next time, happy camping.